Hey there. Okay, so today we are in my kitchen because I'm going to do a little bit of meal prep today. It's a Monday. I normally do this on Sunday, but I had some things that happened this weekend that kind of like threw me off schedule. So we are going to do my meal prep right now. And I'm just going over to let Starbuck in. Mr. Bubba, okay. He was outside doing his, proverbial business. So yeah, I have some meal prep that I need to do today for the week. And I thought I would show you guys and kind of give you a little bit of an idea of the sorts of things that I cook for myself for the week and the meals that I prepare and have things ready on hand, like in the fridge, like ready to go when it's time to eat. So let's jump right in. Okay, so the first recipe that I'm going to show you is my Crustless quiche recipe. Now, I am someone who loves to have a Crustless quiche in my fridge because if you make a gigantic version of one, like a whole big one, and cut it up into pieces, I think it keeps very well in the refrigerator in like individual slices, and it's really easy to heat it back up and eat it whenever you need it. So I am not someone who necessarily eats breakfast in terms of like I sit down and have bacon and eggs for breakfast. I'm more of someone who does like coffee or like a green juice for breakfast, but I will eat my Crustless quiche for a lunch or dinner or a snack if I absolutely, need a snack. So that is what I'm going to show you first. I really don't have any recipes for these meals that I'm going to show you guys. All of this information is in my head, but I'm going to show you and kind of give you quantities so that you can follow along. So we're going to make up some recipes right now, but I do get asked a lot about, things that I show on my Instagram. So if you would like more recipe inspiration or seeing what I'm eating or just what I'm up to, make sure you're following me on Instagram at MissTrenchcoat. But yeah, on Instagram, you guys ask me a lot, like if I have a recipe for things, and if there's something that I have used a recipe for, I do link it. But most of the time, what I cook is just like a basic sort of recipe, and that I might change things up. So this Crustless quiche is basically going to be eggs, spinach, and cheese. Oh, and bacon. And bacon bits I have today. But you could, make a quiche theoretically, right? With any vegetables, any meats, any ingredients you want. It's just eggs mixed with things because we're not dealing with a quiche crust, So, so that's what I'm going to make today, and I'm going to let you guys see what I'm doing now. Okay, so I've got my mixing bowl here and my eggs, and the first thing that I actually need to do is I need to take this chopped spinach, and I just buy a giant thing of chopped spinach from BJ's. I don't know if this came from BJ's or the grocery store, but I always have things like this on hand in my freezer. So I'm just going to use the rest of this bag. Let's see what it says I'm at here in terms of this giant thing. It might be 4. I don't know. It's coming up to the 3 or 4 cup mark. So this is 3 or 4 cups of spinach that's frozen, and I'm just going to microwave it for like 5 minutes just to let it cool down, defrost, So I'll put it in the microwave. While I'm over here, I'm also going to go ahead and preheat my oven to, I think like 400 degrees should be fine. Okay, so that's going. Excellent. Okay. Little discard bin. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, roll up my sleeves. My hands are clean. Open up these eggs and start cracking. This is a pack of 18 eggs, but I'm only going to use a dozen. And then we're actually going to use the rest of the eggs for something else after this. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to add to this is some cream cheese. I always buy whipped cream cheese because it's easier to work with. And again, I'm going to really just be eyeballing this. Really, the rule of thumb, if you're making like a good quiche, which this is gonna, like, I'm not gonna make like a full rich quiche, I think is to use 1 ounce of cream cheese for every egg. But that's kind of a lot. I mean, this whole thing is 12 ounces, but it's already been used. So I'm actually just going to use what I'm going to assume is maybe like 4 ounces. So I don't need to have like all that richness. I'm just going to take what I would say is maybe 4, maybe 5 ounces of this cream cheese. Okay. To that, I'm also going to use some sort of milk or cream. This is half and half. So I will use basically whatever I have in my house. And I'll use about a 1/4 cup of this. And I'm just going to eyeball it because I'm pretty good at that. Okay. You really can't go wrong. Next, I'm going to put in some Parmesan cheese. I like to use Parmesan cheese because it's like really good at binding. And I'll use probably like another 1/4 cup, which is probably honestly the rest of this cheese. So I'm just going to throw the rest of this cheese in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and mix this really quickly before I add in the, oh, you know what? Let's add some seasoning real quick too. I don't like to add a ton of seasoning when I make quiches, but I like to put a little bit in. Okay, so I got a little bit of cracked pepper and a little bit of salt. I try not to go overboard with the salt because I do realize the cheese has salt in it too. So that was literally probably a pinch of salt, a pinch of pepper. I am just a believer of less in the beginning while you're cooking, and then people can season it to taste. So now I'm going to go ahead and mix these together with a hand mixer. Just makes it easier. Now I'm going to go ahead and add bacon bits. Now you can, again, like I said, any meat you want to add is fine, or no meat if that's what you want. Sometimes when I'm being lazy, I will just buy these packets of bacon pieces, like kind of like, you know, good bacon bits, like a good quality bacon bit. And this is, how many ounces? 2.8 ounces in 1 bag, but I'm actually going to use 2 bags. This bag says it has 11 servings in it, so I'm using twice that amount, but that's just not enough bacon. But it's fine because this whole quiche is going to be 8 servings, so it's not like I'm eating all of this bacon in 1 serving. And now I'm going to go grab the spinach. And then I'm just going to fold this in by hand with a mixing spoon. Okay, now what I am going to cook this in is my, what do you call this? I don't even know what you call this. It's a 4-quart, this is not Le Creuset, this is my Cuisinart one. This is a 4-quart dish, like an enamel dish, so like a little bit like a Dutch oven, but it's like a more shallow. I'm going to go ahead and spray it just with cooking spray inside. Cooking spray fumes. Okay, and then I'm just going to add this in here. Now, this is going to go into a preheated oven, 400 degrees. Again, I don't know like exact measurements of anything, so 400 degrees, it works for me. I'm putting it in the oven like this. Seriously, I just make up recipes. So this is why it's hard for me to share recipes when I really don't know what I'm doing myself. So I'm going to leave that in for, I'll go ahead and set a timer for 30 minutes. And then I'll check on it. It hasn't even fully preheated the oven yet, but That'll be good. So I'm going to clean up and then we are going to start on the next meal. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is not a recipe so much as it is a process. So the next thing I like to have on hand for the week that I prep ahead of time is hard-boiled eggs. As you can see, eggs happen to be a particular favorite of mine to cook with. I'm making the quiche, I'm having hard-boiled eggs. I just like them as a good, like, healthy protein that's really easy to work with, and it's especially great, like, if you're someone who likes to snack. I just think eggs keep really well. So I am going to hard boil them. So let me flip the camera around so I can show you how I do that. Okay, so right now on my stove, I have a big pot going. It is not yet boiled, as you can see. It's just kind of starting to heat up. So I'll have this going, you know, on medium high. And then over to the side here, I like to prepare a big glass of ice water, because essentially when you hard boiled eggs, you know, I'm going to put the eggs in here, and I'm actually also, when they're boiling, once the water starts to boil, I'm going to go ahead and put in like a tablespoon of baking powder. They say that if you put baking soda in with hard boiled eggs when they're boiling, it becomes easier to remove the shells by hand, and baking powder has baking soda in it, so I'm using it. It's not normally a one-to-one replacement, but I find that it actually does help as well. I just don't have any baking soda. So once the water is boiled, I will put the eggs in. I will wait and let them cook for, I think, like 25 minutes. And then they go immediately into an ice bath. And I might need to add more ice actually to this so that it stops them from cooking. So I will check back in with you guys once I'm on the next step of the process. Okay, so it is now time to start adding the eggs. The water's like starting to boil, so let's go ahead and do that. I just sort of use like a slotted spoon to help me so I don't burn my hands. And I'm only actually putting half a dozen eggs in here today. So it just depends on what I think I'm gonna need. I think half a dozen will work. And I'm just gonna go ahead and add a little bit of this baking powder. Again, baking soda is really what you need, but there is baking soda in baking powder, so I'm just hoping it works. And then because those are extra large eggs, they're probably just gonna need to be in water for like 25, 27 minutes maybe. Okay, so the timer on the quiche is up, and I just pulled it out of the oven, and there's one more thing I need to do with this, which is add some mozzarella cheese on top. So I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle mozzarella on the top of this and put it back in the oven just to get that nice and melty on top. Okay, and then I'm just going to pop this back into the oven. So he will stay in there just for another like 5 to 10 minutes so we can get the cheese like nice and melted and crispy on top. Okay, so here is the quiche fresh out of the oven. I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on it and just let it sit, because it needs to cool down before I can chop it up. Okay, so the eggs have been sitting for, I think this is like 27 minutes, so I think that's good to go. I'm just going to go ahead and take them out and put them in the ice bath. Not so much an ice bath anymore because the ice melted. Oh, Bubba! Do you see something outside? Starbucks, I don't see anything outside. Is it a squirrel? Oh, okay, I see the squirrel. Okay. Nope, they live outside. What do you want me to tell you? Oh. One of the eggs cracked. Ugh, I hate when that happens. Possibly 2 of the eggs cracked. Okay, yeah, so some of the eggs, it looks like just 2 of them cracked. You can see there's like this fluffiness coming out of them. That's because of the baking powder. It like comes out and it'll look like more fluffy, but I mean, it's still edible. It's not a big deal. That's why I try to be really careful when I put the eggs in the water, but you know, sometimes they crack. And I think I heard when one of them cracked at least, or maybe both of them if they hit each other. It just happens sometimes, which stinks, but I mean, they're still edible. Okay, so now that the quiche is cool and the eggs are cool, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this up and show you guys how I would like store this for the week. First, I'm gonna go ahead and cut up this quiche. I cut it into 8 pieces, like kind of like a pizza pie. And now what I'll actually use to store this food are some meal prep like storage containers. This is 7 of them I have out right now. They come in like multi-packs. I really like these. They're just the ones that are one big opening. I know you can get them divided with like 2 or 3 sections inside, so you can like really meal prep. But I generally just, you know, kind of put a few things in one. I like it better this way. I will leave these linked down below. I get them off Amazon and they're very, very inexpensive for like, I get like a pack of 20, but I've seen like multiple different pack sizes. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is take each one of these pieces of the quiche and pop it into one of these with an egg. And that is not because I would necessarily eat all of these things at one time, but I would eat like a piece of quiche and like an egg as a snack later. So I like just having like all my food in one thing for one day. Now, something else I wanted to show you as I'm doing this is I have some hard-boiled eggs that are left over. They were in my fridge from last week. And this is like generally how I might store hard-boiled eggs if I do a whole like, you know, a whole like dozen of them. Sometimes I buy the eggs that are in these plastic cartons and I like them because I feel like they're a little bit more, they last a little bit longer. And what I do is I will write on here, I don't know if you can see it, but on here it actually says hard boiled and then the date I did it so I don't forget. But for this batch, I'm just gonna go ahead and pop the eggs into the containers just for like simplicity's sake. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and pop these 2 eggs into one because these are smaller eggs and I just need to get rid of these. So here is one. So here's one little container of food. So that's like a lunch and a snack, which would be, you know, that's like most of what I eat in a day is a lunch, a snack, and then my dinner. Because like I said, my breakfast is normally coffee or like a green juice. And I'm not going to take these eggs out of their shells. I store them with their shells on. And then I take them off when it's time to eat. So I'm just going to keep packing these up. And then, of course, the best part of meal prepping, especially with this quiche that has 8 servings, is I've got 1 piece for right now. So I'm going to put this aside and have this for my lunch today. And I'm going to go ahead now and clean up and eat my lunch. And then we're going to come back and we are going to meal prep a dinner for the next few nights. I think this dinner makes like 4 nights of meals for 2. So this is a pretty good meal if you're someone who's got like a family or you just want to be able to like cook once and like have food for the week. I'm going to take my lunch break and then we'll be right back. Okay, so the last meal that we are going to prep for today's video is going to be a dinner, which is going to be what I call my keto casserole. So keto is just a word that it represents a sort of diet or like healthy living sort of nutritional lifestyle, I guess you could be on. But basically it just means that the meal is very low carb, right? Because a lot of times people use the word keto and it really just means low carb. It doesn't really truly mean keto. And I haven't done the like macros on this meal. I would say it probably is true keto because it's mostly meat, but there is a good amount of spinach that goes into it. So greens and a little bit of cream. So it's probably like a moderately keto meal. So in order to make this, what I have here is more frozen greens. I know we just used up my frozen spinach bag. I keep like bags and bags of this in my house. So this is chopped spinach and kale. I get this at BJ's, and this is like the mix that I use in my green juice in the morning. But I'm going to take a good amount of this, and I'm going to go ahead and heat it up in the microwave, just like we did before. What I like about these bags of greens is that as opposed to like getting the blocks, I feel like the blocks are so hard and you have to defrost them. Whereas these bags, I just feel like you can just grab, you know, what you need. So I want to make sure there's a good amount in here. Remember, this is for the equivalent of 8 servings. So I'm just going to do this whole thing. And this whole thing is 8 cups. So I think that'll be good. So that'll be 1 serving of greens per serving of the food, of the meal. And so I think that's a good ratio for like a dinner so that you're getting enough, you know, vegetables in there. So I'm going to pop this in the microwave for like 5 or 6 minutes. And then the next portion of this meal that I have to go work on over at the stove is the meat portion. So I purchased 4 pounds of meat. I did 2 pounds of, this is 2 pounds, right? Yeah, this is 2 pounds of a meatloaf and meatball mix. I like mixes like this instead of just getting regular ground beef because it's ground beef, pork, and veal, and the flavor is so much better. If you're making hamburgers at home and you're not using a meatloaf mix that is pork, beef, and veal, you are missing out on life because regular ground beef tends to be really dry, and this has so much flavor. So this is half of the meat I'm using. And then the other half is a pork sausage, right? So flat out pork sausage. I could use like an Italian sausage, but I purchased this stuff at BJ's and they don't have it like pre-ground at the BJ's. But if you had like pre-ground Italian sausage, or if you want to just cut up the links and take them out of their casing, you could do that as well. So I'm going to go over to the stove now and start cooking this up in like small batches. Yeah, and get this going. Okay, so here is kind of batch 1 of the meat. This is the pork. And the good thing about this is you just have to cook it through. You don't have to necessarily brown it. So you can see that this is, you know, cooked through at this point. So I'm going to set this aside and then start on the meatloaf mix. Okay, and here is batch number 2, the meatloaf mix. This is cooking, and I'm just leaving the lid off to like get some of this liquid to evaporate, but I'm going to go ahead and use my slotted spoon and put it over here to set aside and then drain off the liquid. And then I'm going to go ahead and start combining it with the spinach and the cream base that I'm going to use for the dish. Okay, so I put all of the meat back into the one pan, and this is going to get crowded, but I just thought it would be better to mix it all in this big one. Now I'm just incorporating the spinach. As best I can, very gently. Okay, so I need to go ahead and make the cream mix that's going to go into this. So I'm going to use more of my half and half, maybe like a cup of half and half. That should be good. And then to that, I like to add my seasonings because I just find that the liquid incorporates very well. So I like to put the seasonings in there. So let's see. I'm going to use some garlic powder. And you should probably put like onion powder in here too. This is all like based on what your taste is. So I didn't use onions, so I'm putting a good amount of garlic powder. ground ginger, because I always use ginger in my seasonings whenever I'm using, making like a meat heavy dish, because ginger helps with your digestion. So I just want to make sure I get a good amount in there. And I'm like really seriously over seasoning this. It's a lot of meat. Just trying to make sure there's a good amount of everything in there. Next, some nutmeg. I just think it's a nice warm spice, and don't go overboard with the nutmeg because it gets really. And then some ground coriander. I love this. I love coriander, so I'm putting a good amount of that in there. And then I'm just going to whip it up here. And then this is getting poured on top of that mixture. Okay, and then I'm just going to mix it in. And I'll probably pour some more on top. I kind of just, like I said, I kind of just go by kind of like sight with this stuff. And you could use milk, you could use heavy cream. Again, I'm just using half and half because that's just like default what I've got right now. I just need to make sure that the liquid actually really gets in there. There's enough. I don't want too much. I don't want this like soaking in liquid, but I do want enough that it touches, you know, the meat. Now I'm just going to flatten this all out in here. Make sure we've got distribution on that cream. That's what I want to see. I want to be able to push down and see liquid, but I don't want it to be like soaking. I want it to have to be compressed. I am going to push it down so it's nice and flat. Woohoo. Oven is preheated. And then the good thing about this is I'm just going to go ahead and top it with cheese and put it into the oven until the cheese gets nice and brown and bubbly, and then it's done, right? Because the meat inside has all been cooked. It's all just about kind of getting it all, you know, cooked together at this point. And I'm gonna go like full cheese on this. It's nice and covered. So that was one big handful, which we could assume, like based on my hand size, like is maybe like 3/4 of a cup to maybe a cup. Maybe it's a half a cup based on my hand. I've got little hands, so go. I just want to make sure it's like generously covered. So make sure everyone's got some coverage there. Okay. Now this goes into the oven. Like I said, I've got it at 350 for, it might be like 30, 35 minutes. I'm not sure. We'll have to see how this all plays out. Just keep an eye on it. Okay, so now I know what you're thinking. Now that we've made all these meals, Alexis, what's for dessert? So I actually am going to show you guys a low-ish carb dessert that I do like to make on a weekly basis. And this is super duper easy. Many of you may already be doing this, but I just wanted to show you guys this because it's something that I like to just have in the house as a little bit of a dessert or like something I'll add to my coffee. So we start off with a big tub, 16-ounce tub of whipped topping. So this is like Cool Whip, essentially. And I've had it sitting out for a little bit, so it's nice and soft now. It's not fresh out of the freezer. I mean, you can still do this fresh out of the freezer, but it's, you know, it's a little bit harder to work with. So, ooh, even right now, this is kind of hard. Ooh, it's been sitting out for a while. Well, we're just gonna go with it. Let me give you guys a view down. Okay. They really don't want to come out. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to get all of this out of this tub as much as I possibly can. Okay. May have to chop this up a little bit. Just got to soften this up so that it's kind of pliable. Excellent. Okay. And to this, I'm going to add a box of sugar-free Jell-O. Now, the Jell-O I'm using right now is a Jell-O pudding mix that's pistachio flavored. This is actually my favorite flavor to do of this, but for an even lower carb treat, what you can do is use sugar-free Jello, like Jiggly Jello, and that has like no carbs at all in this. I mean, this still has some carbs in it, but if you're pretty, if you are pretty good at, you know, portioning out, you know, what you eat of this, it actually overall isn't that bad, as long as you don't eat too much of it. So I really love this. I particularly love this dollop on top of my espresso. So it can either be like a little treat, or it can just go on top of your espresso, or you could use this as like a topping on ice cream too, or any other sort of dessert thing. But yeah, we are going to mix this in. You can see it's starting to turn green, like a nice pretty light green, pistachio green. Pistachio is like my favorite ice cream. I feel like, I don't know, it's so hard to say, but yeah, I like pistachio ice cream a lot. So now what we're going to do with this after I'm done is you could theoretically put this back in the freezer and it would turn hard again and almost be like ice cream. But I'm going to put it in the refrigerator and let it stay just a little bit softer than it would if it went in the freezer. And it becomes like a really easy to use sort of like, almost like a mousse. I would say it's like a mousse, which is pretty awesome. So just make sure you get it all. And I'm using like one of these spatulas that's nice and flexible so I can get at the bottom of this bowl, because I don't want to have any areas where like the powder of the Jello has, you know, clumped together. So I'm just trying to make sure everything gets incorporated nice and evenly. And this is a super duper easy treat. Okay, I think that's good. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this back in the tub that it came from. You're going back to you're going back into the tub from whence you came, okay? Fluffy pistachio. Okay, let's see. Again, I just want to make sure I get every last bit of this out as much as I possibly can. Okay, now this is also something else that I like to do with this, just my own personal like OCD-ness. I will take this piece of paper off the top, and then I grab my scissors and some tape. And what I do is, because I actually will sometimes have more than one of these in the refrigerator, so I actually have one already that's like a lemon lime Jello in the fridge, and that's really good. When you use actual Jello, Jiggly Jello, that comes out to like, once you put it in the fridge and it sets, it comes to a very interesting consistency that's like really super yummy. This kind of always remains creamy, but the Jello Jigglies becomes exactly what you might think of adding Cool Whip to Jello. Like, so I'm just going to go ahead, and what I do is I just take this and I tape it. I just tape it up here. And that's so I know which flavor I'm using, so that I know, you know, what I've got in each one of my containers. Oh, no wasting. And yeah, I will pop this into the fridge, and I've got dessert for later, or a really yummy topping for my coffee. And then of course, the best part, you know, to the chef goes the spoils. You can lick the bowl, because this is just whipped cream, basically, and a Jello mix. So, yeah. And we still have the keto casserole going in the oven. And once that's done, I'll show you guys how that looks, and we'll wrap up this video. Okay, so here is that casserole just pulled out of the oven. You can see I just kind of left it in until, you know, the cheese starts to get like crispy on top, and it's bubbling and delicious. So like I said, this is 8 servings. So this would be great for like a big family, or if you just want to, you know, meal prep your dinner one night, one day a week, and then have like basically meals for every night. I love doing things like this. When I'm not doing crock pot meals, some big giant casserole like this is the way to go. And I just want to recommend to you guys that an amazing way to serve this is with like a dollop of sour cream on top. I absolutely love it with sour cream on top. So it actually, this recipe, like I kind of just like adapted it. Like honestly, this started like with me wanting shepherd's pie, but then not wanting shepherd's pie. So, you know, it's basically a meat pie that, you know, doesn't have as much carbs, no potatoes or anything, no starches, but a lot of veggie in terms of the spinach. So, yeah, a dollop of sour cream on top is delicious. It does remind me of something, but I can't think of what it is. Like maybe it just reminds me of when I do make shepherd's pie, but yeah, so it's kind of got that sort of a taste, but you can really mix it up with any meats, any vegetables, you know, any fillings that you want. So I hope this was some good recipe inspiration and meal prep inspiration for you. So thank you for joining me for today's video. I hope you found it interesting. Now I want to know down in the comments from you, do you meal prep and do you have any go-to recipes that you use? I would love to hear about your process and, you know, what you do or what you use down in the comments. So make sure to let me know. If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and feel free to share it anywhere you think it would be relevant online. And if you want to see more of the behind the scenes of my productivity, life, and business, including more meal inspiration on the regular, make sure to follow me on Instagram at MissTrenchcoat. And if you are not yet subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button for more awesome videos by me. And until next time, bye-bye.